And joining us now to discuss further on the issue of the Middle East is Avi Melamed, former Israeli intelligence official and senior official on Arab affairs. Avi, thank you for joining us. What do you make here of Trump's plan for Gaza? What's the feeling on it in Israel?
Well, Trump's statement obviously sent an enormous shockwave across the Middle East. It's kind of like reshuffling the cards in all the arenas, including the Israeli political arena. Roughly speaking, across the board in Israel, the political reaction was in favor and welcoming of Trump's statement.
Well, what about Trump's suggestion that Palestinians in Gaza should move out? We're seeing that Palestinians are saying that they won't move out. Do you think they should be forced out?
There is another layer to the whole story that has to be brought in the discussion, and that is the fact that many people in Gaza Strip, many Palestinians actually want out. They want a future because they don't have anything left in Gaza Strip because everything is ruined following the war that Hamas launched in October 7. This is sentiment that has to be brought into the discussion in the Western media. So it's not about necessarily forcing people to get out, but enabling the many people in Gaza Strip who wants to get out the ability to do that.
Well, do you think that Trump's comments here could in any way harm the ceasefire deal and the releasing of the rest of the hostages?
No, in fact, I think the contrary. I think that it may even boost the process of the negotiations. There has been an interesting response by Hamas. Other, of course, the general rhetoric rejecting the Trump initiative. Hamas at the same time basically sent the message that it is interested in engaged in a discussion or negotiations or dialogue with the Trump administration. Hamas message comes shortly after Trump's statement. So, of course, these two things are connected. It may indicate that Hamas will be willing to step up and boost the process of discussion and concluding of the negotiations over the issue of the Israeli hostages.
Now, going back for a second to the resettlement of Palestinians in Gaza, we've seen other countries, and we heard in the report just then, countries like Jordan, Egypt, they don't want to accept Palestinians. What's your take on that?
It's not surprising. There are many reasons for that. First, I would say that they view, Egypt and Jordan view the presence of Palestinians and particularly factors that are affiliated with Hamas as a threat to their own national security. The other level is the fact that unfortunately there is a lot of resentment in the Arab world towards the Palestinians. And the third thing that is, in the end of the day, the Arab states and the Arab leaders express support in what they call the Palestinian cause. They actually justify the rejection, saying that if Palestinians from Gaza Strip will be relocated, that will be the end of the Palestinian cause. The reason for their position is that the Palestinian cause has been a very useful pawn or card in the service of Arab government and non-Arab government like Turkey and Iran for their own interests. So obviously they would like to see that card, sort of speaking, continue and to exist. And I think that the most significant thing in the end of the day is to remind ourselves that right now in Gaza Strip, there are hundreds of thousands of Palestinians that have nothing because of the destruction that Hamas inflicted upon Gaza Strip by initiating the war in October 7. Those people need an answer. To say no to initiative is not an answer, particularly when you take into consideration the fact that all the policies, all the suggestions that has been applied thus far by European governments, by United States administrations, by the Arab world, by the United Nations and other agencies vis-a-vis the situation in Gaza, all those suggestions or policies totally failed. And the outcome on the ground was escalating and intensifying misery and destruction for the people of Gaza and for Israelis. So I think that these are two things that has to be brought also in the context of the discussion vis-a-vis Trump's statement and the future of Gaza Strip.
Now, Avi, you mentioned there that a lot of people in Gaza would actually like to move out because there's nothing left for them there. But of course, that can't be every single person. There's always going to be some people who want to remain there. If in that situation they're forcefully resettled, is there a risk there of breeding more resentment and ultimately more conflict?
As you said accurately, there are people in Gaza Strip that would like to stay. These are the people that have something to stay for. But there are hundreds of thousands of people in Gaza Strip that have nothing to stay for. The issue here is not the people that have, the issue is the people they don't. And now here is something very interesting. It's a very intriguing phenomenon, and that is the fact that there are people in the West, circles in the West, including governments and others, that actually portraying themselves as being very much interested in the well-being of Palestinians, but at the same time they actually demand the Palestinians in Gaza who have left with nothing to stick to their ground. This is something that is kind of like, I would say, ironic, if not paradoxal. So in the end of the day, the issue here is not to say automatically no, but the issue here is to say what can be done to help those people, the Palestinians in Gaza, who have poorly chosen their leadership, that dragged them to this terrible situation. It's a terrible situation. What can be done in order to help these people? And this is the biggest question right here. And I think this is the significance of Trump initiative. He brings something totally new to the table. It is kind of like stirring the pot. You are not any longer standing in the same puddle of water. You are basically looking at something that could potentially generate some sort of trajectory that will, in the end of the day, will help Palestinians in Gaza, will help Israelis, and I would even say more than that, could potentially radiate positively on the inner security and interests of Arab states like Egypt and Jordan, who right now, as you said, are strongly and robustly rejecting Trump's initiative.
And you're saying that going along with President Trump's plans could actually end up helping or benefiting these Arab states?
What I'm saying is something very clear. Up until now, they have tried all kinds of methods and mechanisms and ideas and policies. The bottom line, they all failed. And not only that they all failed, the situation became worse on the ground. As a reminder, October 7 attack by Hamas and the outcome of that attack as we see today in Gaza Strip. In other words, if you try to do once and twice and three times and four times the same thing that in the end of the day result the same issue, there is definition for that, as we all know. That's the place where you have to try something new. That's the place where you have to think out of the box. That's the place where you have to implement a totally new approach, shake the whole system in order to maybe find a new way that will lead to a different trajectory. Let us remember, all players involved, other than, of course, Hamas and other players that are radicals in the region, but all players involved, in the end of the day, say, we have one thing in common. We don't want to see Hamas resuming power in Gaza Strip. That is the fine and good objective. Now the question, how do you obtain that? If you will stick to the old methods,
Right.
I can assure you that this is exactly what will happen. Hamas will resume power in Gaza Strip.
Right. Well,
Maybe if there is a new path, that will not be the case.
absolutely. There's a lot to look out for there, and we will be keeping an eye on it. Avi Melamed, former Israeli intelligence official, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Have a good day.